Bluff City Media presents Tigers Live with Francis Carlota. Join Francis after every Memphis Tiger game as he breaks down each matchup, player of the game, and upcoming games. Now, let's get to the show.
What's going on, everybody? It's Francis Carlotta here after another, let's be real about it, another really disappointing loss here for the Memphis Tigers. Don't really know what else to say at this point. It was a really disappointing 97-88 loss to UAB this afternoon. We're going to get into everything about this game, get into the first half, that horrible second half, how disappointing that lack of effort was. We'll get into everything, and I will be joined in just a moment by Roman Cleary, the beat writer for the Memphis Tigers. So let me go ahead and add him to this stage. Roman, what's going on, man?
What's going on? Obviously another tough one here today for Memphis, but I'm doing okay. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, sun's still shining, still breathing. So a loss is definitely disappointing. I mean, all things considered, I'm good, but that was pretty disappointing. 3 straight losses for the Tigers. Quad 3 loss today against UAB on the road. I'm probably going to sound like a disappointed dad, quite frankly, for this entire episode. I'll just sound disappointed. I don't know how else to put it. But Roman, thoughts on the game? How are you feeling about the Tigers as well?
Well, Francis, I hope you like the bubble because that's where the University of Memphis is now heading. Unfortunately, I mean, they set up this big non-conference schedule to avoid this exact fate. They succeeded in it more than I think anybody could have realistically imagined. They went 10-2, earned multiple, what were at the time quad 1 wins. Most of them are no longer quad 1 wins, but that's besides the point. But they've gotten into conference play, and things have just fallen off the rails. The defense is terrible. The offense is very, very inconsistent. It can be explosive, it can be exciting, but there are also just points where it goes into super long scoring droughts. There just isn't a lot of play set at times as well. A lot of iso ball, just a lot of selfish, play overall. And, I mean, again, just goes to show that the zones in particular are giving Memphis's offense a lot of trouble. We saw South Florida's 1-3-1 absolutely murder Memphis last week, and UAB's did the same to Memphis for a very significant portion of the second half here today. But it's more than that. It really just comes down to effort. I mean, when Memphis got down by double digits, there was really no sense of urgency. I felt like it really just seemed like Memphis was assuming in their minds, we're just going to come back at some point. Everything will work itself out. But that did not happen. I mean, they made a good little push in the final 5 minutes or so, but obviously it wasn't enough. There's no margin for error anymore. We said there was little after the Tulane game. That margin for error is now gone. Now, this may not be a quad 3 loss forever. UAB is 148 in the net. If they can get up to 136, this can move up to a quad 2 loss. So maybe that happens and Memphis's resume becomes a bit better after that. But assuming that doesn't happen, a second quad 3 loss on the resume is absolutely devastating. I don't even think the 2023 team suffered that. And they were still on the bubble, ending up with an 8 seed. Now, the Tigers this year have better wins than the Tigers team did last year. So maybe that can balance it out a little bit. But it's definitely a bubble watching season now. I never thought Memphis would get to this point after the way they started the season. But here we are.
Yeah. Shout out Savage, Marcus Savage of 3 to Hardaway Pod. Shout out. Terrible stretch. I mean, that's what this is. 3 straight games, 3 straight losses. It's the worst stretch at, I guess there could be worse times, but this is a pretty bad time to play your worst basketball of the year just after being ranked in the top 10. All the hype, all the hopes for this team was at a sky-high level. And then, you lose at home to USF, and everyone's kind of down. Everyone's a little disappointed, but you still have an inkling that they can find at Tulane, get a road win. That doesn't happen. all right,
Nope.
back to square one again. Back to now, just hoping they can pick it up on the road against UAB, and then again, just a big flat no, just no effort, no energy. And I think for me, at the very least, that was the biggest worry I have from this performance was the lack of urgency and effort. I tweeted before the game that Memphis had to play with urgency in a hostile environment at Bartow Arena, and I think they played with urgency in the first half, but that was a double-edged sword with all the turnovers in the first half, and in the second half when things started to get away from them, that urgency was gone. What would you say was the biggest concern for you, Roman, from watching this game?
It's the biggest concern from the South Florida game and the biggest concern from the Tulane game and basically the biggest concern from any AAC game Memphis has played thus far. That's the defense. The defense is terrible. You and Hitman went on and on after the Tulane game how Memphis actually has good defenders. How they are actually capable on that end of the floor, and perhaps in some universe they are, but yeah, I know Diggs is right. This team doesn't have much toughness right now. That's really hard to say, but the perimeter defense is still very bad. Eric Gaines, who had missed his last 17 3-pointers heading into this game, was 3 for 4 from beyond the arc today. Yeah, 3 for 4, including 2 in the first half. He beat the first half buzzer to give UAB 45-44 lead there.
I think we lost Roman for a sec.
Oh, did we? Did we lose me? Or have we lost Francis?
Oh, sorry about that, y'all. I'm back.
Okay, so did we lose me or did we lose you? I'm confused.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure. My internet's putting in about as much effort as the Tigers on defense right now. So
okay. Yeah, okay. But anyway, UAB ended up with a 45% three-point clip today. And, I mean, I get what a lot of people say. It comes down to effort, comes down to that, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, effort can only do so much for you. I mean, we knew this team was going to be a weaker defensive team than Memphis has had in years past because, I mean, Penny just ended up prioritizing offense in the transfer portal a bit more this time around. But I don't think any of us could have envisioned just how porous the defensive side of things has really been, especially in AAC play. They were okay, I guess, in non-conference play because they forced a lot more turnovers, and you had Caleb Mills there, who was a huge help there, you know, in terms of defense. But ever since he went out in the Tulsa game, it's gone from mediocre to just flat out bad. I was originally going to say bad to worse, but I think mediocre to bad is a bit more of a fitting adjective there. So, yeah, the defense is obviously number one. The turnovers were also really bad. Memphis finished with 22 here today. I think a lot of those did come in the second half. Let's see. 13 in the second half and what? Yeah, so 13 in the first half, 13 in the second half, and this stat thing is tripping. But anyway,
a lot of turnovers.
yeah, 22 turnovers for the game. If they had 13 in the first half, that meant they had 9 in the second half.
Right.
So just horrible ball security, which really plagued it early on because Memphis actually started out 8 for 8 from the field in this game. And if you are shooting 60% from the field in the first half and 45% from 3, you should be leading, plain and simple. But Memphis's lack of ball security was very, very apparent, and that allowed the Blazers to stay in the game. They stuck around, and then they just ran away with it in the second half, as we all saw. And David Jones and Javon Quinterly, I think they ended up combining for 8 turnovers in the first half. What did they finish with? David Jones finished with 9 turnovers. You have Javon Quinterly with 4, Jaquan Walton with 3, Naquan Tomlin had 2. That's just not going to be good enough. You cannot have your 2 best ball handlers combining for 13 turnovers. That cannot happen. That's a recipe for disaster, a recipe for failure. And but Memphis, they cooked that recipe a few different times throughout this game, and they've baked it super well, if you will, over these past 3 games. I mean, obviously, this is still just a 3-game stretch. Memphis can still go on a run and make everybody forget about all of this as they've done the past 2 seasons. But it's very much looking very gloom right now, very doom
Yeah,
and gloom.
it's not. No, I'm with you. It's not looking good at all.
I mean, it's
Like
not it's not as bad as where they were in 2022, but it's pretty
yeah.
close.
I mean, we're like you said at the jump. We're back on bubble watch, and I don't think any of us, any Tigers fans, any Tigers pundits, anybody who follows this basketball team, really expected that this team would be on bubble watch at this stage in the season.
No,
And
absolutely
now
not.
we
No.
officially the Tigers are on the bubble, trying to figure out a way to get out of the maybe again that dreaded 9-8 matchup or even a 10 seed or what have you.
I
We're
don't know.
staring the
At this
bubble.
point, I mean, I'd rather have a 10 seed than a 9 or an 8.
Oh, of course. I
Probably.
mean,
You'd probably rather have a 10 seed.
I'd always rather have a 10 seed so I can face a second seed in the second round. But obviously, you have to win your first round matchup for that to even happen. But either way, interesting. We needed TFL Leonard. I mean,
Yeah,
he
Tiafio Leonard. I mean, yeah, that's
he
something that
was the
I've been thinking
jewel
of a
of
lot actually as well, because Tiafio Leonard was supposed to come in and be that primary, perimeter defender, but unfortunately things didn't work out in that situation, and he ended up pursuing the NBA G League instead, and he'll be an NBA 2024 draft prospect. And
yeah,
but yeah, I mean that guy's right. Memphis definitely could have used him today, and
yeah,
really throughout the past stretch and the whole season, really, because you need a good perimeter defender. For the longest time, that was Lester Quinones. Memphis hasn't had him now for 2 years, and I think the defense has directly suffered off of that. So until you get another top-notch perimeter defender in the building, uh, things may get bad for Memphis defensively under Penny Hardaway for a while.
Yeah, and I'm seeing all the comments about Caleb Mills. I've talked about the loss of Caleb Mills at length for the past couple episodes of this show, and I'll own up whenever I'm wrong. Whenever I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to let y'all know that I'm wrong. I did not think that the loss of Caleb Mills would be this big. I really didn't. I thought it would matter, of course, but I didn't think it would be this big of a deal. But it's a huge deal. You're losing a secondary playmaker next to Javon Quinterly. You're missing a guy who can also hit open threes to bust a zone. You're missing your best perimeter defender. You're missing another guy who can get downhill, can play make as well, but also can finish at the rim and be creative and crafty. You're losing a guy who averaged around 12, 13 points a game. And the idea of
It was more like 9, but it was more
not
like
yeah,
9.
but I mean,
But
for
I
his
see your
college
point.
career,
Yeah,
for his college career, you're losing a guy of that caliber, and it's definitely a big loss. It's definitely a problem. I've talked about the lack of playmaking on this team as well. You have 22 turnovers, and that's because you don't have enough ball handlers on the team that can take care of the rock. I mean, if Javon Quinterly is supposed to be the ball handling lead guard, and then he's out there with 4 turnovers and 3 assists, like that's the reverse assist turnover ratio you're looking for. And so that's a problem. And if he's not taking care of the ball, who's going to do it? Like that's a real issue for this Tigers team. Roman, do you think that things will get better before they get worse? Or do you just see do you see the mudslide just continuing?
I mean, judging off of history, you have to assume that things are going to get better at some point, because, quite frankly, this Memphis team is too talented to be this bad forever. But when is it going to get better? I have no idea, because they are not showing any signs of it getting better. They had an entire week between games. Penny Hardaway spent the whole week talking about how we're going to be more intense in practice, and we're going to prioritize defense, and we're going to take pride in defense. And what happens after all that? They allow 97 points and turn the ball over 22 times. Talk is very cheap at this point. If you're the U of M, they can say whatever they want. We, the media, will keep asking the questions. They can say whatever, but until they show it on the court, I don't really have much of an answer for you. They didn't show much signs of getting better, though, previously, and it's worked out. So, again, you have to assume that history will repeat itself here, especially with a team this talented.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope.
Tough right now.
That's the hope, Roman. And, you know me. All of y'all know me by now. I really try and be positive. I really try and be a positive person. And I do tend to lean in your favor, Roman, that things will get better. I don't think this is the end all be all. I don't think the season's over. But I do want to bring up the comment made by James here. Unbelievable. Where is the heart and pride? And as I mentioned before, that to me is the biggest concern for this Tigers team. There just doesn't seem to they don't seem to be playing with the intensity, the pride, the heart, the passion that's needed to win at a high level. They showed that against Virginia, against Clemson, against Texas A&M on the road. But over the past really 6 games up to this point, starting really against Vanderbilt, where they should have beaten that Vanderbilt team by double digits, they squeak out a victory. It really started there. That they just don't play with that same intensity. I mean, today, yes, you can obviously say, and I'm again starting to lean more in your favor too, with saying that this team doesn't have great defenders, but I really believe at the core of it all with their defense, it's just a lack of effort. They're just standing around, they're ball watching, they're not sticking to their man, they're not fighting over screens. A lot of it's just effort. They're just not playing with the effort and intensity needed on the defensive side to lock in, get multiple stops in a row. What is it that the Memphis that staff, they keep track of kills, and kills are 3 stops in a row. I would love to know how many kills Memphis has gotten over the past 6 games. I mean, it cannot be a high amount of them because they just can't seem to string together stops. So that's the biggest thing for me is really just a lack of effort. That's how I feel here. Shout out Robert Smith. These guys aren't from Memphis. They don't understand being from Memphis. They have ruined our name trying to make highlight reels. I don't want to say they ruined our name. I don't want to say that, but I get where you're coming from, Robert. I get where you're coming from. I said this in an article before. Penny Hardaway has to figure out a way to make sure that this team knows what this team means to the city. To not just play for themselves, but to play for the city of Memphis. You've been at the post-game press conferences, Roman. You've seen Penny. You've seen him talk about the same thing many times. They just don't seem to get it. Do you put most of the blame on Penny for that, or do you put the blame on the players, the lack of continuity? Where are you placing blame, Roman?
I mean, I think blame is just goes to everybody as a whole. I do lean more towards the players than I do Penny, because Penny has shown an ability to succeed under these circumstances before. But, I mean, I think he does have a point. I know I bring it up a lot. I know a lot of people bring it up a lot, including Penny. But I think he does have a point where these players are just looking at the names on the jerseys. Guys like David Jones, who comes from the Big East. Guys like Javon Quinterly, who comes from the SEC. These players, they are, I think, to a degree at least, looking at the name on the jerseys and just assuming how the game is going to go. And then that changes the trajectory for everything, because you come in with a certain expectation of, oh, we're just going to blow them out. I can play at like 50, 70%, and, we'll just win no matter what. If you come in with that mentality, you're going to get burned over and over and over again. And honestly, I don't know what it's going to take for, guys like this team to recognize that you can't do that. I don't know what Penny's going to blame for the loss ASAP. I have no idea. Maybe it will be team chemistry. Maybe it will be effort. But I think a lot of those things are true. And, yeah, he deserves blame, but I can't put the majority of this on him overall because after, based on what I know about the team and based on what I'm seeing on the court, I think he does have a point in a lot of those things that he's saying in the availabilities.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a great point by you, Robert. Shout out Coach Wayne Kelly here. The team is allergic to prosperity. When they get a lead, they tend to squander it by not valuing the next possession. Amen to that, Coach. It's as you preach. I mean, you were a high level basketball coach, Wayne Kelly. Valuing the rock, taking care of the ball, sharing the ball. Those are just basics that are so important to every single college basketball team, to every NBA team, to any basketball team at any level. Valuing the rock, valuing possessions, valuing the next getting the next stop, getting the next bucket. It's just there doesn't seem to be a lot of care, a lot of want. Shout out to D'Angelo Halo as well. This team has to show accountability. It's not good enough. And I think you hear from Javon Quinterly, you hear from David Jones, you hear from these guys do their post-game press conferences, they do their media availability throughout the week. Roman, I know you've been to the media availability that they've had. They're saying the right things. I see what you're pointing out there, Roman. I see the quotes you put out from these conferences. They seem to be saying the right things. Like, yeah, David Jones acknowledging that he met with Penny Hardaway, and I got to take more pride on the defensive effort. JQ after one of those tight wins saying, if we don't figure it out, if we don't buckle down, one of these tight wins is going to turn into a bad loss, and they got to find a way. Like, I think they're saying the right things, but maybe it's a mentality thing. Maybe it's just a lack of fight, a lack of drive. Maybe it's what Robert mentioned before, playing for the name on the back of the jersey, not for the school, not for the university, not for the city on the front of the jersey either. They're saying the right stuff, but we have yet to see.
It's odd because they're just doing the opposite things as to what they're saying. I mean, I think everyone knows how to attack a 1-3-1 zone. You pass the ball around, you force them to move out of position until you get an open three. That's pretty much it. But instead, Memphis tries to iso ball it, whether it be Quinterly or Jones, Walton, whoever. They're just gonna we'll just iso it. I'll make the play myself, and that's just not going to work. This team has a very selfish mentality on the offensive end, and on the defensive end, they're just not giving any effort. On top of the fact that I don't think they're great, perimeter defenders to begin with, the lack of effort is only exemplifying just how bad the defensive issues are right now. This is a pretty broken basketball team that we're seeing out of Memphis here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, man. This team doesn't feel together. You saw them put in Jordan Brown for spot minutes when Jordan got in foul trouble, and Jordan Brown was about as effective as a lamppost. Like, it just, not a lot of stuff from JB. But look, I don't want to get mega negative here. Really quickly before we get to break, I know you got to do your recap. Roman, give me your player of the game, whether it's from UAB or from the Tigers.
Well, I think you got to point to Gaines and Lindenborg for UAB. Lindenborg finishes with 23 points and 16 rebounds. I want to know how many offensive rebounds did he have? I know he had 7 in the first half. He finished with 10 offensive rebounds. UAB won they had 16 offensive rebounds in this game, and Lindenborg had 10 of them. He had 10 of them. Yeah. Eric Gaines, again, like I mentioned earlier, 0 of 17 from 3 heading into this game. He goes 3 for 4 from 3 here today, finishes with 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists as well. He was a first-team All-AAC guy in the preseason, and he definitely showed why here today. David Jones puts in another hell of a scoring effort, obviously, with 24 points and 9 boards. 2 big threes down the stretch that gave Memphis hope of a comeback, but obviously it wasn't enough. But I'll probably go Yaxel Lindenborg there as my player of the game for UAB.
Yep. I think I'd have to go there as well. Like, he was incredible today. Lindenborg, 23 points, 16 rebounds. 10 of those boards were offensive rebounds. He just seemed to be just dominating Memphis down low. He'd have to be player of the game for me as well. But let's send it over to a commercial break. Roman, I know you got to get to your recap. So, Roman, peace out to you, man. All the best, and I'll see you at the next game, bro.
Yeah, Wednesday, right?
Wednesday.
After
yes,
Rice.
sir.
Live from FedEx Forum this time. So that'll be
yes,
fun.
sir. Live from FedEx Forum. All right, Roman, take care of yourself.
All right, bye-bye.
This is one of the stranger stories that have happened during Penny Hardaway's time at Memphis, which has been marred by some pretty crazy things going on. But this might be at the top of the list.
Let me first say I am glad to hear that he's gotten over his sickness.
Mm-hmm. Whatever it was made him lose some daggum weight. I'll tell you that.
He looks a little, he looks a little more in shape, brother. I can't lie.
I mean, let me get that, bro.
This went from, reports of the team not being so open to the idea to in a week, hey, he's on the team. I want to know who voted no and who voted yes and how many are on each side. From my experience, it just sort of feels like you had a lot of no votes, maybe a couple of yeses, but the coaches still made the decision for the team ultimately.
Tune in to On the Bluff with Christian Fowler and Gabe Coon every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
basketball at times has turned into like very selfish, individual, statistical, like let me get mine regardless of a win or loss, especially at the collegiate level when guys are trying to make it to the next level or professionally. It's not necessarily all about coming in and winning games and championships and playing together and guys being willing to sacrifice. You get more guys that want to go out there and score points and make flashy plays for themselves personally than you do get teams that just want to win basketball games.
Well, and I think the transfer portal has kind of accentuated that, right?
Oh, 100%. You come in and you got 13 new guys every year. Like, it's going to be difficult to.
It's almost like you got 13 mercenaries, right? That are representing a team that the majority of the fan base would live and die for.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Tiger Nation, I'm happy to help announce the launch of Bluff City Collective as the official collective of Memphis basketball. The Bluff City Collective was founded with the sole purpose of helping Memphis basketball continue its long and storied tradition of excellence. The Bluff City Collective will help ensure, as we move further into the new era of college athletics, that we continue to recruit with the best programs in the country. Basketball in Memphis is special. A huge part of what makes it so special is you, Tiger Nation. As a former player and now coach who was born and raised in this city, I know that better than anyone. Without your unwavering support, we would not be where we are today. That is why I'm asking all of you to join me in supporting the Bluff City Collective. The city's team needs you. I need you. Please go to bluffcitycollective.com to make a donation or become a member today. The time is now. We are not satisfied with just being good. We want to be great. Let's bring a national championship to Memphis. Go Tigers, go.
All right, let me throw up this graphic for the rally at the Rendezvous, February 3rd at 3:30 p.m. It'll be after the Wichita State game. Get your tickets at bluffcitycollective.com. It'll be a meet and greet with pictures, autographs, Q&A with Tigers players and coaches. And don't forget, your ticket will also include drink and food as well. So again, get your tickets at bluffcitycollective.com. Shout out to Bluff City Collective for presenting this show. Y'all go buy tickets. Y'all go and support the team. And hopefully, by that point, the Tigers can figure something out and get back on the winning track. Well, we're back from the commercial break, and I'm joined by the illustrious Gabe Coon. It's my first time talking to you, Gabe. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having me, man. That was a debacle. I don't know how to put it any other way. That was 24 turnovers later, more bad perimeter defense, and you lose by 9 to another team that's going to go down. That'll be a quad 2 or a quad 3 loss?
Quad 3,
in that category. Quad 3. I mean, it's just the spiral out of control we've seen is brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just straight up ask you, Gabe. Is it time to sound the alarm bells? Are we reached DEFCON 1? Is it time? Or are we holding off? Like, if they lose to Rice at home, now is that the time to press the button, or are you pressing the button now?
I say yes, and the reason I say that is because I think when we have this conversation, we need to put it into the context of what the expectation was with this collection of talent. With this collection of talent, you were trying to get yourself out of the 8-9 game. There was no real conversation about, oh, are they going to get into the tournament? Will they miss the tournament? Will they be a bubble team? That was never the conversation. I just feel as if we have sort of reached the level, especially looking at these losses, these 3 in a row, we've reached the level of sort of, it's not just underwhelming performances, but you have put yourself into the same position that you've been in consistently when you're Penny Hardaway, and you finally wanted to get over the top of that. You wanted to beat those allegations, beat what people have said about you in the past, and you're not going to do that. But when you put it up against the expectation of getting into the top 7 seed, getting out of that 8-9 game, I just think that you need to be panicked, because I think most bracketologists are going to drop them into that 8-9 game right now, if not on the bubble. And the truth of the matter is, with the rest of conference play outside FAU twice, maybe a North Texas game on the road, maybe SMU on the road, you only have a chance to move down. You're not going to move up in the metrics. You're not going to move up in the AP poll. You're not going to move up in bracketology, because you don't have the same opportunities as everyone else in the rest of the Power 6 conferences. So, yeah, I think you should panic at this point. I think that it would be fair to go ahead and push that red button.
I'm trying my best to formulate the devil's advocate argument.
Go ahead, absolutely.
Really trying.
I'm
in my
into
head,
it.
Like my devil's argument would be, look at all the losses by top teams in college basketball. There's so many top teams who suffer these weird losses throughout the entire country. It's definitely not just Memphis. You see Kansas losing games. You see just massive programs.
Duke lost a bit.
Duke lost a bit. Like these massive programs getting taken to the wire against bad teams. And you see it all the time in college basketball. And we're kind of at that point in the year where we're halfway. You still have another half of the year to go. Memphis has been in this position before. We have looked at this Tigers team and thought, like, well, damn, how are they going to improve? How are they going to find a way to come together? And somehow, some way, they do. Right. It just so happens that in the past, at this stage in the year, Memphis would be already on the bubble, and everyone would be hoping that they can get on the right side of the bubble. At this point, they were on the other side of the bubble. Now, they started at a higher place. They started at 10th in the country. And yeah, we can talk about the net rankings and the Ken Palm this and the Bart Torvik, whatever the hell that. But they were still ranked 10th in the country. And now they're kind of regressing back to the mean of where they usually are, which is, as we know, 8-9 game. And not fully on like a last 4 in or first 4 out, but they're just like right ahead of that. Like that's where the Tigers have
one more loss and you're right there again.
No, absolutely. And that's my pushback. If they do lose against Rice at home, oh my God.
All right.
Tigers live. And I mean, I'm just gonna it'll be hard for me to smile. Like, and I'm a happy guy. I love to smile. It'll be hard for me, man, because you're just looking at, you'll see a team with no fight. You'll see a team that doesn't care. And honestly, at this point, if they beat Rice by 1, I'll take it, man. I'll just take it where they can find a way to come together to make big plays. Because even you think back, Gabe, yeah, the close wins against bad teams were concerning, but our thing was they're finding a way to pull it out. They're finding a way to win. And now they just don't have it. They're not fighting. They're not showing that want. I mentioned at the jump, my biggest concern was the lack of effort, not really the X's and O's per se, just the lack of effort and pride that this team isn't playing with. Do you agree? Do you think, is it an X's and O thing for you? Is it pride? Is it both? What are your biggest concerns?
So let me break down a couple of things and then I'll get to that, because I think I need to make a couple of points. Yeah. Yes, I agree with you on the side of college basketball season is chaotic. Like, I completely agree with that sentiment. We saw UConn lose, 6 games at the early start of Big East play last year. They still went on to win a national championship. I get it. It's chaotic. You lose to bad teams sometimes. On the road basketball is hard. And I think, going into the weekend, AP top 10 teams going on the road against unranked opponents were 17-27. You know what I mean? Like, they were it is chaotic. I will say this, though. Some of the teams we bring up, UConn in that conversation last year, Duke in the conversation this year, Kansas, they all have opportunities to make up ground where the Tigers don't. So I don't think that's a one-to-one example. Now, if I was playing devil's advocate to my own point about pressing the alarm, is this season's gone backwards of Penny's 2 years getting in the tournament, right? It's like a flipped. The first 2 years making the tournament, started slow. You brought yourself along. You were great by the time you got to February and March. Mm-hmm. This year, they were great in the non-con. Now they're slowing down. Can they pick it back up? I'll say this. I think Penny has a decent track record of finishing out conference season strong. But he's going to have to finish it really strong. You have 3 losses in conference. You're going to be tied for 6th in the AAC. That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. We never thought that was going to be a reality. But getting back to your conversation, when it comes to the energy, the effort, the intensity of this team, and sort of maybe the want to, what I saw, and I know people talk about Caleb Mills all the time, okay? And I get it. 9-point per game scorer, could attack off the bounce, got teammates involved. He's your best perimeter defender, and you've struggled with your perimeter defense. I thought today was almost the most you missed him, not because of anything he brings to the floor. And I've talked about this in the past. I just think the leadership aspect that he brings to the floor, the amount that he ties those guys together. Because I saw a team in that first half. I know they struggled on the defense or on the defensive end. It looked bad. They gave up another 40-point half. But I saw a team hustling. I saw a team trying to close out, trying to do everything that was pounded in their head this entire week. There was effort. They were just all over the place. Now, once you got into the second half and you saw that game sort of slip away, those guys just let go of the rope immediately. They stopped trusting in their fundamentals. They stopped trusting in what was being coached to them. And I think a guy like Caleb Mills was a guy in the moment in the early season to stop everybody and say, guys, continue to do what we're being coached. We have to continue to – we can't let go of the rope just because a couple of possessions go bad. We have to continue doing the right things. And I just don't think they have that presence right now, and it's very frustrating. But, yeah, to answer your question, I think today was sort of the most – it was a look into sort of where their head is at the moment. When things aren't going their way, there was just a collective letting go of the rope, and I didn't like to see that.
Yeah, and shout out to King Meeks here. Does this team believe in themselves is this person's question, and that's a hell of a question to ask. And it's one that you don't want to be asking at this point in the season. You know, if you want to ask that question in training camp, you know, before the year or whatever, like sure they haven't played a lick of ball yet. They don't know what this team's gonna look like. But to ask it now, it's just not a good time to be asking that. And Gabe, I think you make an awesome point. And just to add on to it also, Penny's in-game interview. Look, I didn't expect anything else. I expected that exact thing from Penny Hardaway. But to your point about them playing with fight and effort in the first half, and then the second half, as soon as things got tough, they just looked like they let go of the rope.
I mean, they had scored a basket and then just don't get back on defense and allow a wide open. I was just, what's going on? Like, how do you have a miscommunication that bad?
I think, and again, I'm a Penny Hardaway supporter. I'll always back him till I go blue. You know, I'll always back the guy. I still think he's a hell of a coach and the right guy for this job. But to your point that you made before, you saw Penny Hardaway physically just as soon as those threes went in, as soon as JQ didn't fight over those two screens and just gave up a look, you saw Penny just like you saw the life kind of get sucked out of him. And it's one thing for the life to get sucked out of us as people watching the game and feel that level of just disappointment in seeing those players not fight, not play the energy. It's another thing to see that from your head coach. It's almost like these players may not think that, do they believe themselves? Does Penny believe in them? You know, I don't want to.
Think we lost Francis? He'll probably get back on here in a second. I was watching him and Roman earlier. Is that what we're dealing with?
Sorry.
Again, I saw you lose a little bit of connection earlier with Roman. So I figured
yeah. Sorry, internet. But so I don't know what was the last thing y'all heard. But either way, I don't think it's a good look from your head coach to be so clearly disappointed in that moment when they gave up two open threes. But the game's not over. The game is not over by any stretch of the imagination. They can still get into it. But maybe that little bit of doubt is starting to creep in to the players, but also maybe in the back of Penny's mind. Maybe he's thinking to himself, man, this team may not be who I thought they would be. Maybe they may not. And we're not at practices. We're not at film sessions. We don't know everything he's saying. But shout out to I know Diggs. Players are a reflection of their coach, and I do think, to a degree, I just wish that sometimes Penny, it wasn't so easy to see that he's disappointed on the sideline.
It's an emotional follow of the leader, right? Like you're emotionally following the leader, and if your leader has emotional lows, you will probably fall in line with that. And that's why I brought up Caleb Mills, because I think I do kind of feel for Penny at some level, because being in a locker room at the University of Memphis, your coach can tell you something a million times. Your coach can tell you he's blue in the face, tell you what to do. Sometimes it doesn't click until one of your peers, one of your players says it to you and pounds it into your head. Sometimes it doesn't click until that happens. And I think there's a clear void right now that needs to be filled of player leaders, guys who can lead in a correct way so Penny doesn't have to do it at every step of this whole season. So, man, I agree with you. And I think, I mean, if I'm a player on that team, let's be honest, that the question about do they believe in themselves? After 3 straight losses to these type of opponents, 2 quad 3 losses and a quad 2 loss, I mean, that doubt definitely creeps into your head. Damn, are we even good anymore? Was all that stuff we did in the non-con a fluke? Those things go through your head for sure.
Yeah. I mean, imposter syndrome is a real thing. You know, it's like none of us are impervious to that voice in the back of your head just trying to spew BS and self-doubt. None of us are impervious to that. You know, I'm definitely not. Right. I don't know you that well, Gabe, but I'm sure you're not impervious to it either. Not. It happens to everybody. It's human nature. But that goes to your point as well, that you need to have that voice in the locker room. And when you think about this roster too, Gabe, you would imagine that voice would exist. They're all veterans. They all have played at high levels. They all know what it takes to excel in college basketball. And I think that point is as well as why I was so excited about this team entering the year. I didn't think there would be an issue with leadership and locker room issues. Like in my head, all these dudes have been around the block molded more than once. They all know what it's like. This is not their first rodeo at high level college basketball with all the pressure. But maybe it's that what I talked about before, too many cooks in the kitchen, too many guys who like to play the same way. Not a lot of dudes who prioritize passing the ball, prioritize playmaking. There's just so many bucket getters, and there's not enough dudes who are willing to share the ball and play as a team. Because when they were on other teams, they were the guys with the ball to take the shots. David Jones at St. John's, Jay Quan at Wichita State, Caleb Mills at Florida State. Look at Caleb Mills. He played on a bad Florida State team where he was by far the best player. Now, there was another guy who I think averaged like similar stats, but he was their best player. Like JQ was the only guy who played on a team with other really good players, and he was supposed to be the hand that fed everyone else. You know what I'm saying? Like that, he's the only guy. But this roster right now, it's not filled or littered with guys who are focused on playmaking, distributing, and playing as a team. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I've with the problem with that too is we've seen Javon Quinterly do it. We've seen him distribute in a high level and be a good orchestrator of this offense. It's just sort of like and what really is so bothersome is they have this 3-game losing streak on the heels of probably their best half of basketball of the year against Wichita State in that second half. So everybody had these high hopes going into this 3-game stretch. Oh, they'll be able to take care of business. Loss. It's just strange. We've seen them do what they should be doing to turn these losses into wins. They're just not doing it right now. And I do want to say something about David Jones. I love David Jones as a player. He's unbelievable.
Please, Gabe.
He's an unbelievable scorer. But this offense is far too reliant on him just grabbing the ball and going and trying to make something out of nothing. They have to be more orchestrated on the offensive end, and that goes to Penny and the staff drawing some things up. When they get in a bind, they need to be able to fall back on something. They don't have a fallback plan. Their fallback plan is, hey, David Cook. And that leads to how many turnovers today? 9? It's just – I love him as a player, and he's a great scorer, but you have to use him in more responsible ways going forward, and that's the way I put it.
I think that's an awesome point. You know, I've been preaching it for a while. I want to see a bit of a playmaking lead from David Jones because he still gets tunnel vision whenever he gets downhill and misses way too many open guys. And this was the worst game for David Jones to look like St. John's David Jones, where he's just taking bad shots. He's not.
He knocked down a bunch of them, though.
I mean, that's kind of just who he is.
The turnovers made you feel so much differently about his game. He was just so, I mean, the ball security was just as low and bad as possible. He was not being responsible with his touches.
Yeah, I agree. The whole team, I know Diggs said the whole team had trouble driving the ball. You see Jaquan get downhill and just lose the ball. Tomlin gets downhill, just loses the ball. Right. Jalen Young get downhill, just loses the ball. It's like as soon as the possession switched from UAB to Memphis, some UAB ball boy just slathered butter on the basketball. Like it just that's my only explanation.
That's your explanation. Hey.
Someone had a tub of butter and just flung it on the ball. But no, it's playing with care and with intent is another thing too. Kind of what you were saying as well. I see people on Twitter, see people in Discord saying they look like an AAU team out there. They're just rolling the ball out and just playing. And again, to harp a little bit more on that in-game interview with Penny, you converse that with the in-game with Andy Kennedy. That there are people on Twitter who was like,
that internet, I'm telling you, that internet is it's something. But I will say that I think ultimately, and Francis will get back in a second.
I'm back. Sorry about that again.
I really think, as opposed to years past, like I have fought against that AAU moniker with Penny because he was an AAU coach, and you can't have an AAU coach, go be a college coach, first year guy, whatever. In years past, I've fought against that because defensively, the schemes, like AAU teams don't play defense. I don't know if you've ever watched a bunch of AAU games. They're not there to play defense. They're there to go get buckets. I think this year, that I'm not going to give a whole bunch of credence to it, but I think that comparison rings more true than it has in the past. This is a team who's just going to roll out there, try to play hero ball on the offensive end. They have some bucket getters who can get it for you every single night, like David Jones, Javon Quinterly, Jaquan at times. But then defensively, the schemes that we've seen Penny put in the past, the schemes that have been successful, that have made them, a top 20 defense some years, they're not working. They're not there. You don't have the full buy-in. There's just a lack of buy-in on the defensive end. And I mean, I think that AAU thing kind of rings more true than it has previously, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. And again, real big apologies to everyone for the internet. I am moving in about a week and a half, thankfully, to an apartment that'll have better internet. So thankfully, that will hopefully be fixed when I move soon, just probably like a week and a half or 2 weeks or so. Anyway, before I totally cut out of things, I'm with you, Gabe, on the AAU thing. And the point I was trying to make before is you looked at the coach's cam interview with Andy Kennedy, and you could hear him yelling out clear instructions to the guys to run actual sets, to get into actual motion, to run
every time down the floor.
Every time down the floor, on whether it's on offense or whether it's on defense, you heard him yelling and being vocal about what he wants the players to do on the floor. And then you flip it to Penny's coach cam, and he's just Penny Hardaway. He's exactly who we know him to be.
Can we laugh about that interview, by the way, how much he did not want to do it? They asked him 5 questions to start the thing, and every time they asked him a question, he'd just sort of call out an order to one of the guys on his team. Yeah. And then they just gave up on asking questions. That was pretty funny. And on a sidebar, a little lighter note, it did make me laugh. He wanted no part of that sideline interview.
I appreciated also after that, Jimmy Dykes came back and he was like, that was good TV. Massive thank you to the coaches. And that was Jimmy Dykes being nice. That's what that was. He wasn't going to badmouth that interview on live TV.
It's cool, though, to see at least how these guys conduct themselves live on the sideline, because that's not something you get to see every single day. It's just nice to see sort of how they interact with their players, because unless you're sort of, courtside, 5 rows up, close enough, game to game to see how Penny Hardaway acts, you don't see that day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I don't know what's happening with my internet. It's really crappy. I'm really sorry, y'all. I really do apologize. So I guess if it's going to be that crappy, I don't want to keep y'all going, in and out with the show and everything. Gabe, I'll just really quick again, thank you for your time. So before I get you out of here, you did say earlier that it's time for you to press the button. If they lose against Rice, are you just like, is it just, do we just give up? Is it over?
No,
like,
that's a different question to me, because this collection of talent, I don't know if at any point in the season you can give up on it. You can't just say, oh, they're who they're going to be and they're never going to change, because who knows if something clicks? Who knows if David Jones takes everybody, takes everybody and takes the lead for this team. They have a emotional and on the court leader. I mean, this collection of talent will keep me on board for the entire year, but do not lose to Rice. Let's just not put that in the air. Let's make sure that is not even a remote reality.
Yeah, I agree. I'm fully with you. Let's just get a win. Let's just get a much needed win and carry some momentum into Wichita State at home. And hopefully y'all get your tickets for the rally at the Rendezvous, show up, support for the Bluff City Collective for their awesome event. And hopefully, I'm sure it's going to be a lively discussion with those players and those coaches up there, but hopefully there's some positivity that's going to go around. But Gabe, thank you so much, man, for being a part of the show, coming on. Let them know where people can find you. If everyone should know where to find you by now, but let them know, and then I'll take us to a commercial
hit
break.
Me up on X at G_Coon71, Monday through Friday, 92.9 FM ESPN. Just turn that radio dial to 92.9. I'm on there from 4 to 7, and then also every single Tuesday at noon, right here with Bluff City Media. Make sure you check out the On the Bluff podcast with me and Christian Fowler. Francis, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. I'll see you right on the other side of this break.
This is one of the stranger stories that have happened during Penny Hardaway's time at Memphis, which has been marred by some pretty crazy things going on. But this might be at the top of the list.
Let me first say I am glad to hear that he's gotten over his sickness.
Mm-hmm. Whatever it was made him lose some daggum weight. I'll tell you that.
He looks a little more in shape, brother. I can't lie.
Let me get that, bro.
This went from, reports of the team not being so open to the idea to in a week, hey, he's on the team. I want to know who voted no and who voted yes and how many are on each side. From my experience, it just sort of feels like you had a lot of no votes, maybe a couple of yeses, but the coaches still made the decision for the team ultimately.
Tune in to On the Bluff with Christian Fowler and Gabe Coon every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Basketball at times has turned into like very selfish, individual, statistical, like let me get mine regardless of a win or loss, especially at the collegiate level when guys are trying to make it to the next level or professionally. It's not necessarily all about coming in and winning games and championships and playing together and guys being willing to sacrifice. You get more guys that want to go out there and score points and make flashy plays for themselves personally than you do get teams that just want to win basketball games.
Well, and I think the transfer portal has kind of accentuated that, right?
Oh, 100%. You come in and you got 13 new guys every year. Like it's going to be difficult to.
It's almost like you got 13 mercenaries, right? That are representing a team that the majority of the fan base would live and die for.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Tiger Nation, I'm happy to help announce the launch of Bluff City Collective as the official collective of Memphis basketball. The Bluff City Collective was founded with the sole purpose of helping Memphis basketball continue its long and storied tradition of excellence. The Bluff City Collective will help ensure, as we move further into the new era of college athletics, that we continue to recruit with the best programs in the country. Basketball in Memphis is special. A huge part of what makes it so special is you, Tiger Nation. As a former player and now coach who was born and raised in this city, I know that better than anyone. Without your unwavering support, we would not be where we are today. That is why I'm asking all of you to join me in supporting the Bluff City Collective. The city's team needs you. I need you. Please go to bluffcitycollective.com to make a donation or become a member today. The time is now. We are not satisfied with just being good. We want to be great. Let's bring a national championship to Memphis. Go Tigers, go.
Welcome back, everybody. So, yeah, let's just really briefly look ahead, and I'll get y'all out of here for the show. Memphis has 11 games left. They obviously play Rice at home this Wednesday. Hopefully, as we talked about before, hopefully that's a much-needed win and a breath of fresh air for the University of Memphis, for Tigers fans, for all of us. Hopefully that's a big win. But with 11 games left, I'll just give my prediction for the last 11. I think Memphis goes 9-2 in the last 11 games. I think they lose at North Texas, and they lose one of the Florida Atlantic games. If that's what happens, if Memphis goes 9-2 with those losses, and obviously some quality wins in there as well, you're probably looking at a Tigers team that's still in that 9-8, maybe 7 at best range. Like, I just feel the hopes that I had, I predicted preseason that Memphis would be a 5 seed entering the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's going to take, as I know Diggs said, let's go 11-0. I think it's going to take 11-0 from the Memphis Tigers over these last 11 games to get over that hump, to get out of that 9-8 matchup, to get out of the 7-10 matchup, to really feel a little more comfortable when you enter the NCAA tournament. So I think that's what it'll take. It'll take 11-0, but I don't think it'll happen. I think Memphis will suffer some losses against some really good teams. FAU, again, they play them twice. They go at North Texas. I know, Diggs, you mentioned that SMU game. It's going to be hard. At SMU, that's going to be another hard matchup. But I think Memphis can pull that one out on the road, and I think that'll be a good sign for the Tigers. Good win for the resume as well. But I'm predicting 9-2. But hopefully, let's hope they go 11-0, and hopefully we can start getting back on the winning side of things. And before I get out of here, once again, just want to put up the graphic for the rally at the Rendezvous, February 3rd, 3:30 to 6 p.m. Meet and greet with Tigers players, coaches. You can get autographs from them as well. Question and answer with those players and coaches. Again, that ticket gets you drink and food at the Rendezvous. So everybody go to bluffcity.com, get your tickets. If they're still available, I hope they are. I don't know off the top of my head if they're available or not, but if they are, go get tickets and show up, show out, support the team, support the NIL for the University of Memphis. All right, y'all. Again, apologies for the internet issues. Hopefully can get them ironed out soon. But thank you everyone for tuning in to Tigers Live. This is Francis Carlotta, and let's hope that let's hope they can figure it out. Let's hope they can get it back on the winning streak. I'll see you all Wednesday after the game against Rice. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tigers Live. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. For comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports, head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co and find out how you can become an insider. We will see you back here next time.